radio station.
Today can be the turning point in your life by making a simple decision.
Fundamental questions of navigation. Where am I? Where am I going? And how do I get there from here?
I invite the leaders of our planet to ask themselves these three questions before they make any crucial decisions.
But if you don't make decisions, you're going to stay right where you are.
We are all map makers.
We are in a time of transition.
If we're going to change, we have to change the direction that we're going.
Our planet needs leaders who know where they want to go.
When we change the direction we're going, then we want to make sure we're going in the right direction.
Leaders who can see the big picture.
Because if we're not, we're going to either go backwards or we're going to stay where we are.
Recognizing the psychological and the spiritual shifts and changes that need to be made, often from the inside to the outside.
To be able to shape your future, you have to be willing and able to change your paradigm.
Complex journeys require navigation. The path to the truth is one such journey. This is your GPS. Hairstyling services provided by J.D. Edwards Salon and Spa, Palmdale Shopping Plaza, Madera Street. Accessories provided by Chevette Williamson Jewelry. Standout jewelry for standout women.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to GPS Global Paradigm Shift, right here on Global 99.5 FM. I'm your host, Michelle Malcolm. I have Shelley Lewis with me here on set because we have a breaking news story that we have to speak about before we go into today's subject. So, Shelley?
Yes, good afternoon, Thomas, and good afternoon, Michelle. Yes, we just be receiving information into our newsroom that the Governor General, His Excellency C.A. Smith, collapsed during an event on Eleuthera. Details reaching our newsroom that he has been airlifted to the capital to receive medical treatment, and Permanent Secretary Jack Thompson is traveling along with him. And we're expecting that information at this time is sketchy, but we're expecting that more details will be released to us as they become available. I just got off the phone with the government house, and they have confirmed that the Governor General did collapse and is being airlifted to the capital, and more information will be released as they become available.
Okay, so do we have any information about what event he was attending at the time of the collapse?
I was told from a person on Eleuthera that he was attending an event at a school in Hatchet Bay when it happened.
Okay, and as far as you are aware, has he already been lifted to the Capitol, or that's in progress?
He has been airlifted to the Capitol,
Okay.
and we're just awaiting details from Permanent Secretary Jack Thompson.
Okay, so I'm pretty sure that you are on top of
Yes,
this.
we'll be following it, and we should have more details. If we have to break into it to give details, but we'll definitely have the details in our evening newscast at 6:30.
Okay, thank you so much, Shelley, for all the work that you do. I know you're going to stay on top of that story, and
Certainly.
we'll wait to hear from you.
Thank you, Michelle.
Okay, for those of you who joined us a little late, breaking news: the Governor General has collapsed at a function while attending a function in Eleuthera, and has since been airlifted to the Capitol, where he is receiving medical treatment. The details are still sketchy. We don't know as yet what caused the collapse or his present condition. As soon as we get more information, we will break into the show if necessary, or we will hear all of the details during Shelley's newscast later on this evening. So thank you so much to Shelley for that news update. All right, so turning our attention now to what we are going to be talking about today. We have heard a lot in the past days about reparations after the royals visited the Bahamas and Jamaica and Belize. There was this recall for reparations because of the role that Great Britain would have played in slavery. And there are some who see this as an opportunity to really shed light on not just the ravages of slavery, but the connection that exists or should exist between peoples of Africa and the diaspora. And so on the show today, I'm calling the show today The Journey Home, because we're going to be talking to persons who have decided that they want to learn more about who we are and our culture by reconnecting to where we came from. You know, there's a saying that if you don't know where you came from, you can't know where you're going. And I truly, truly believe that that saying is true. And it has been documented that we, people of the Bahamas who are of African descent, came mostly from Western Africa. And this particular group that is going to be joining me today decided to trace their roots and traced it all the way back to Ghana, where they recently visited for a series of events in Ghana to reconnect the motherland with the diaspora, those of us here in the Bahamas, and learned in this journey that our biggest cultural celebration, Junkanoo, can be traced back. And we knew this theoretically, but they were able to do more than theory. They were able to discover exactly who was John Canoe, even though that was not his African name, which we will learn. But they discovered this direct connection between our biggest cultural celebration in Junkanoo and what they experienced in Africa, in Ghana. And so this is what we're going to be talking about on the show today. I want to begin, though, by looking at the transatlantic slave trade, because we have to set the stage for what we're going to be talking about today. We all have heard the stories of the horrors that took place during slavery, and we've heard the stories about Africans participating in the sale of fellow Africans, etc. But I don't know how many of us know the true backstory of what that whole impact has been and continues to be on the people who are descendants of those slaves. So we're going to go to clip number 1, which is going to take a deeper look at the transatlantic slave trade. And then I'm going to bring my guests into the conversation for us to talk about what they would have discovered in their journey home.
Slavery, the treatment of human beings as property, deprived of personal rights, has occurred in many forms throughout the world. But one institution stands out for both its global scale and its lasting legacy: the Atlantic slave trade, occurring from the late 15th to the mid-19th century and spanning 3 continents, forcibly brought more than 10 million Africans to the Americas. The impact it would leave affected not only these slaves and their descendants, but the economies and histories of large parts of the world. There had been centuries of contact between Europe and Africa via the Mediterranean, but the Atlantic slave trade began in the late 1400s with Portuguese colonies in West Africa and Spanish settlement of the Americas shortly after. The crops grown in the new colonies, sugarcane, tobacco, and cotton, were labor-intensive, and there were not enough settlers or indentured servants to cultivate all the new land. American natives were enslaved, but many died from new diseases, while others effectively resisted. And so, to meet the massive demand for labor, the Europeans looked to Africa. African slavery had existed for centuries in various forms. Some slaves were indentured servants, with a limited term and the chance to buy one's freedom. Others were more like European serfs. In some societies, slaves could be part of a master's family, own land, and even rise to positions of power. But when white captains came offering manufactured goods, weapons, and rum for slaves, African kings and merchants had little reason to hesitate. They viewed the people they sold not as fellow Africans, but criminals, debtors, or prisoners of war from rival tribes. By selling them, kings enriched their own realms and strengthened them against neighboring enemies. African kingdoms prospered from the slave trade, but meeting the Europeans' massive demand created intense competition. Slavery replaced other criminal sentences, and capturing slaves became a motivation for war rather than its result. To defend themselves from slave raids, neighboring kingdoms needed European firearms, which they also bought with slaves. The slave trade had become an arms race, altering societies and economies across the continent. As for the slaves themselves, they faced unimaginable brutality. After being marched to slave forts on the coast, shaved to prevent lice, and branded. They were loaded onto ships bound for the Americas. About 20% of them would never see land again. Most captains of the day were tight packers, cramming as many men as possible below deck. While the lack of sanitation caused many to die of disease and others were thrown overboard for being sick or as discipline, the captains ensured their profits by cutting off slaves' ears as proof of purchase. Some captives took matters into their own hands. Many inland Africans had never seen whites before and thought them to be cannibals, constantly taking people away and returning for more. Afraid of being eaten, or just to avoid further suffering, they committed suicide or starved themselves, believing that in death their souls would return home. Those who survived were completely dehumanized, treated as mere cargo. Women and children were kept above deck and abused by the crew, while the men were made to perform dances in order to keep them exercised and curb rebellion. What happened to those Africans who reached the New World, and how the legacy of slavery still affects their descendants today, is fairly well known. But what is not often discussed is the effect that the Atlantic slave trade had on Africa's future. Not only did the continent lose tens of millions of its able-bodied population, but because most of the slaves taken were men, the long-term demographic effect was even greater. When the slave trade was finally outlawed in the Americas and Europe, the African kingdoms whose economies it had come to dominate collapsed, leaving them open to conquest and colonization. And the increased competition and influx of European weapons fueled warfare and instability that continues to this day. The Atlantic slave trade also contributed to the development of racist ideology. Most African slavery had no deeper reason than legal punishment or intertribal warfare, but the Europeans who preached a universal religion and who had long ago outlawed enslaving fellow Christians needed justification for a practice so obviously at odds with their ideals of equality. So they claimed that Africans were biologically inferior and destined to be slaves, making great efforts to justify this theory. Thus, slavery in Europe and the Americas acquired a racial basis, making it impossible for slaves and their future descendants to attain equal status in society. In all of these ways, the Atlantic slave trade was an injustice on a massive scale, whose impact has continued long after its abolition.
So, as we would have heard, just trying to mute my microphone here on my device so we don't get that feedback. Slavery was a terrible, terrible crime against humanity. And this is something that we have to consider when we're looking at the whole question of why it is necessary for us to reconnect to mainland Africa and the people of Africa, so that we could truly get an appreciation of where we have come from and where we are going. And the persons who are going to be on the show today actually did more than just talk about reconnecting, but made the trip all the way to Ghana after it was discovered that there was a direct connection between us, those of us here in the Bahamas, and the people of Ghana, because that is where our ancestors were taken from. So joining me here on the show today, let me see if I make sure I have everybody. We have, now I see the device says Robin Lightborn, but that doesn't look like Robin Lightborn. That's, so who's using Robin Lightborn's device?
That is I. That is I.
And I's name is?
Robin Lightborn.
Oh, okay. So forgive me, because I was thinking Robin was a female. All right. So Robin Lightborn is a humanitarian. Thank you so much for joining us, Robin Lightborn. My apologies for that. We also have Dr. Michael Pateman, who is an archaeologist. Welcome, Dr. Pateman.
Thank you. Thank you.
And we have my soror and cultural practitioner, Angelique McKay. Welcome, soror.
Thank you so much, my lovely soror. Pleasure to be here.
So good to see you. And we are also expecting
Christopher Davis, an historian who led the movement to go back to Ghana. So I know that while you were watching that video, Angelique, you said this video is making me angry. Let's talk about that emotion and why it's there.
I tend to stay away from watching anything that has to do with slavery or reading any material that has anything to do with slavery. I get too emotional and I get way too angry because people tend to, as the video did, they try to justify why they did a lot of the things that they do. So it's one of those things I tend to stay away from. I know what happened. I know why it happened, and I choose not to relive what happened because it makes me too emotional.
The thing, though, is that there are so many younger people, especially, who do not know what happened, who have not taken advantage of the facts that are right there for them to understand where we are and why we are here. You know, I still get a lot of people who say, I'm tired of hearing about slavery, or why should people be talking about reparations, because this has nothing to do, what happened back then has nothing to do with us. And it has everything to do with us. The fact that we are still feeling the effects of the slave trade. We are still feeling the impacts of it, and people are still benefiting from it on the other side of the discussion. So this is something that we cannot ignore. But I hear what you're saying. It is hard to watch because it does make you angry. It does make you, furious that people had such low regard for the lives of our ancestors. And unfortunately, as we look throughout history, we see where we have still been disadvantaged in so many ways because of that whole,
Many people still think that way. And what I do when I'm in a setting, I try to educate people. I know I have a lot of people that listen to me, and I may not come off as a militant with it, but I try my best to empower persons of color who look like me and try to educate them on what it is. My body is a canvas. I have African symbols that have significant meaning all over my body. So there's never a question as to who I am or what my focus is. And people, like you said, they tell you stop getting angry, let that go. When you think about what they did to our ancestors, I look in the mirror and I say that could have been me. And when we did that pilgrimage and walking along some of those steps, it really was an emotional journey. I know I may be getting ahead of myself, but you caused it. You poked the fire. When we went to Elmina Castle, there was this large ball, iron ball, that they would put to the ankles of females that were unruly. Well, I automatically said that would have been attached to me, right? And it was so heavy, I could not lift that past my waist.
Wow.
That's how heavy that was. And they attached that to women who they were basically starving, or who they would come to have to sleep with and to use their bodies. But if they were violent or aggressive or resistant, they would chain them to these kinds of things. And this is some of the reasons why I try to stay away from watching anything with slavery. Anything.
Understood. Now, let's talk about that journey, how that came about. I know that research was begun to trace the roots back to where our ancestors came from, because I've heard that we are descendants from Western Africa, but your group went deeper to truly discover where exactly we came from, and that led you all the way to Ghana. Talk about how anybody can jump in, and I think we're now being joined by Nana.
Nana.
All right, so we're just now talking about how this whole journey that began from the decision, let's trace our roots, to you actually being in Ghana and being celebrated in Ghana. Take me through that process, please.
Well, essentially, it all began with me just doing research, specifically, for Bahamians as well. and tracing our roots, particularly from the African or the Black perspective. And then I began, felt feeling a little stagnant for a while, and I began working on my book, kind of focusing on the Bahamas, as well as placing us sort of on the proverbial map in terms of the global Black struggle, or the Ma'afa, if you will. And of course, I started to research the origins of John Canoe, and many of those myths and stories that we received growing up, I never really believed, particularly as I got older, and developed a firmer Pan-African fervor, if you will. And after my wife, Tamara Davis, and I made our first journey to Ghana last year, that just pretty much opened the floodgates. And since then, I've been putting together this team with my partner, Robin Lightborn. And of course, we had to bring Angelique and Dr. Pateman. We are all directors, as well as Ras Copper of Sankofa Flamingo now. And it just evolved into something that's much bigger than any book or research, that is not only important to us in the Bahamas, but the entire African diaspora as well. And furthermore, the history of the Ahanta people and our shared history with them here in the Bahamas really shifts the narrative and suggests that we must relook at the entire narrative and rhetoric surrounding the transatlantic slave trade as a whole. And I could talk on and on about how the Sankofa Flamingo thing evolved and continues to burgeon and grow into something much bigger than simply an edutainment entity.
All right. So you actually began the journey. How did it come about where you went from thinking about doing this to actually making your way to Ghana? Tell me about that process.
Oh, well, that process was a rough one. I had made the decision since about 2019. And then, of course, the pandemic really put a hindrance on it. But I used that time to do more research, to begin writing my book, which is going to be published later this year. And that's essentially how it happened, just saving up money as I could. And the first 3 trips essentially were mostly out of pocket by those of us who are intimately involved in the vision and the mission that we were all trying to obtain together. And so that's how it happened, where we found the origins and this man that we know as John Canoe as being specifically in a specific region, a village, as a matter of fact, known as Princess Town today, at the southwestern extremity of Ghana. And that's what got me to go over there, essentially. The first trip, we was literally roughing it out, hitchhiking across country, arrived at Princess Town at 3 a.m. in the morning. My brother Alice Kofi over there, I was talking to him for months prior to me arriving, and then I finally arrived. And as they started to share the research, they never really made that firm connection to the Western Hemisphere. And so I had all of this research on my side. They had all of this oral history, empirical data, and research on their side. And once it came together, this just exploded into something that was much bigger than I could have ever fathomed.
Wow. I've never had the opportunity to travel to West Africa. However, I have visited South Africa twice. And even though it's been well documented that we are from Western Africa, there was still so much in South Africa that I related to. It was amazing. One of the things that they did was they took us to the village where Nelson Mandela grew up. And they had an entire spread prepared for us. And the food on the plate was called something different, but it was food that I eat here in the Bahamas.
Oh, yeah.
I started freaking out. I was like, oh my God, we eat this in the Bahamas. Oh my God, oh my God. It was just so surreal. But not only that, at one point they brought in a youth choir type of, like a community choir. And they started, you know how in our family island churches we have what they call Russian?
Yeah.
The movement, the sound, it was, the only thing different was the language.
Right, yeah.
But down to the movement, the sound, everything, I was like, this is so surreal. And that was the first time for me that I really connected to the truth that this is where we are from. And like I said, it was South Africa. That wasn't even West Africa. So I think it's something that I know it's impossible for everybody to do, but as many people that can, I would highly recommend that you make that trip, because it was truly a spiritual experience to meet these people who were so much like we are. It just made the history connect. And so I'm sure that you guys would have had that and way more in the experience in Ghana, because as I looked at the video, and I'm going to play the video of your welcome in Ghana on the other side of the break, because we have to go to a quick break. But as I looked at that video, I was looking at Bahamian faces.
Oh, yeah.
I was like, oh my God.
Cousin this one, and Auntie that one, and Uncle the other one, right?
I'm serious.
I saw so many family members there. I saw a lady who looked just like my wife's mother. I sent my wife a message. I'm like, send me a picture of your mother. I have to show them this.
No, it was really I was like, oh my God, these are Bahamian faces. So I think a show like this is important. And the work that you guys have done is so important, because again, you cannot know where you are going if you have no clue of where you have come from. And one of the things that really bothers me is when I hear things like we did a show about a week and a half or so ago with Dr. Melida Harris-Barrow, who is the president of the 6th Region Global Chamber of Commerce. And she is working to have an event called a Day of Atonement, when African kings and queens come to the Western Hemisphere to atone for what took place between our ancestors and theirs. And it really bothered me to see somebody comment on that show, people trying to get out of Africa and you're trying to go there. And I was like, wow. I mean, if you are ignorant, at least let us guess you're ignorant. You ain't got to put it out there for us to know how ignorant you are, because that's an ignorant statement. But you'd be surprised at how many people think that way. And I want us to address that. But we have to take a quick break. So we're going to take this break. And then on the other side of the break, we're going to look at the Welcome Home event that was held in Ghana, where the royals of Ghana actually welcomed you and said, welcome home. So we're gonna look at that and more on the other side of the break. Stay with us. This is GPS. We'll be back after these words from our sponsors.
Okay.
Understanding your microbiome, also known as your gut ecosystem, can change everything you thought you knew about nutrition, digestion, immunity, and metabolism. Keeping your gut ecosystem healthy and balanced is essential. Ultimate Microbiome by Longevity was specifically formulated to optimize this ecosystem. It provides the advanced support your gut needs through prebiotic, probiotic, and postbiotic supplementation. Our unique blend of probiotics includes Lactobacillus and Plantarum, healthy bacteria that can help prevent harmful bacteria from taking over your gut. Increasing your gut's population of beneficial bacteria creates a more balanced gut microbiome, which has been shown to aid in weight loss, skin health, sleep, mood, and may even help with seasonal allergies. Ultimate Microbiome also promotes the production of postbiotics. Postbiotics are key to help regulate your gastrointestinal health. To enhance digestion, Digizyme Multi-Enzyme Complex, a blend of 5 specific enzymes, has been added to Ultimate Microbiome. It can help break down food so your body can better absorb nutrients. Plus, we've added our proprietary I-26 Hyperimmune Egg Powder to aid in the elimination of disease-causing gut bacteria and help your body balance its immune response. Ultimate Microbiome, the scientific, proprietary, and holistic approach to gut health that helps optimize your body's entire gut ecosystem. To learn more, contact your Longevity associate.
Welcome to Sunshine Auto, the hardest place on the planet for a rims, paint, and tires.
We are your auto superstore for rims, Lexani, Azaras, Trueform, Western, Lux, Fuel, Tracklight, Tough, Rough Racing, Velocity, Mud, All-Terrain, and low-profile tires, cars, homes, and commercial window tinting. At Sunshine Auto, we put God first and customer is king.
Less is love.
stay healthy, it's crucial to make sure you get the nutrition you need every day. But it's difficult to get all your recommended vitamins and minerals from food alone. Even in the United States, 94% of people are deficient in at least one nutrient. Beyond Tangy Tangerine 2.0 by Longevity is a simple, convenient, and affordable way to help your body get the essential nutrients it needs. It's an advanced plant-driven multivitamin mineral complex that contains certified organic whole foods, trace minerals, and antioxidants. BTT 2.0 supports your body's natural defense system with a proprietary blend of energy-boosting and body-loving nutrients, plus prebiotics, probiotics, amino acids, and enzymes that support digestion. With an unusually high ORAC score of 8,000, you get even more antioxidants to help combat free radicals that can cause damage to your cells. But to get the most benefit and value from any multivitamin, your body must be able to break down the nutrients so you can fully absorb them. Otherwise, they'll just pass through your system without doing any good. Beyond Tangy Tangerine 2.0 was specially formulated with synergizing cofactors to ensure you get maximum nutrient absorption. Beyond Tangy Tangerine 2.0 is the easiest way to give your body the balance and complete daily vitamin mineral supplement it needs for optimal support of your overall health. To learn more, contact your Longevity associate.
This portion of GPS is brought to you by Tiki Bikini Hut at Junkanoo Beach. Great food, cool tropical drinks, and family fun in the sun.
Welcome back to GPS Global Paradigm Shift on Global 99.5 FM. Michelle Malcolm in your company. Today's show is being called The Journey Home. And we are talking to a group of Bahamians who are part of the, and I hope I pronounced this correctly, Sankofa Flamingo Foundation, which recently made a pilgrimage to Western Africa, specifically Ghana, to reconnect to the people there, because it has been shown that Bahamians are the descendants of persons who were brought from Ghana to this part of the world and enslaved. And they received a red carpet welcome from the royalty of the people of Ghana. So let's go to clip number 2 so we can take a look at their trip.
These are traditional dances showcasing the Ahanta traditional festival called Abisa. The occasion is to welcome its citizens who were taken to the Caribbean as slaves many centuries ago back home. At the gathering, the creme de la creme of chiefdom all present to see what is truly a historic day.
There is no other tribe in this Ghana, the Gold Coast or the black race, that suffered the humiliation that was meted on the human beings, the black race for instance, than the people of Ahanta. They were taken by people who thought one race was superior than another, took them to areas where they never dreamt of. Today we are here welcoming our brothers from the diaspora for the purpose that this place, Ahanta, is their home and the only place they can call home.
It's unequivocally proven that the first transatlantic slave ship to come from Africa to the Bahamas came from Ahanta land, more specifically Fort Mellcross, Cape 3 Points, in the year 1721. Furthermore, there are reports in British newspapers about some mystical person who occupied the German fort, and no matter how hard the Dutch tried, they could not take over this fort. That man was our very own Jan Kwao, the namesake of our parade.
The John Cano Festival is one of the biggest in the Caribbean and parts of America. Its history is rooted in the Kundum Festival, celebrated by the Nzima and Ahanta people.
I know there are so many things that connect us culturally, and one of that is the John Cano Festival. the history of the Jonkani Festival, which derived from the name Jankao and the native of Ahanta, is inspiring and intriguing. One Ahanta Guru who was referred to as an African general who controlled over 20,000 army and waged several wars against the Europeans and prevailed.
Junkanoo is the greatest show on earth, and now the narrative is going to be more expansive and more comprehensive, having been to the actual place where John Kwai lived, defended his people.
The Sankofa Flamingo Foundation, led by this team that is coming back home today, wants to help promote tourism in the Western region and help bring festivals here like the Kundum to the rest of the world on a bigger platform.
We seek to build this heritage tourism product, solidarity between the people of the Bahamas, North Carolina, South Carolina, Georgia, Florida, Belize, even countries like Mexico, Puerto Rico. This is where I found all of these commemorations to this great Ahanta hero, John Kwao.
As Ghana seeks to position itself to draw more people from the diaspora to come home following the Year of Return initiative 3 years ago, Ahanta and its people are taking the lead and showing the way. Justice Baidu, Joy News, Osua, in the Western region.
I think I saw a couple of aunts and uncles and cousins in that video. Every time I look at it, I'm like, wow, truly genes is something else, boy, because you could see that we have truly come from these people. I mean, we looked so much like them. But what was it like going through that experience, actually there in Ghana, being welcomed, but more so connecting to the history? So it jumped off of the pages of the history books and became a reality. What was that experience like?
Let me share a bit, right? Because this was absolutely a profound experience, and I want to share a short story as to explain the profoundness of what this experience was for me, and I know it can be for others, and what it was for us on the team, right? My personal journey into trying to search and find about me, who I am, where I came from, African past or whatnot, started consciously in college when I was 19, 20 with a history class, right? Never did history back home here in the Bahamas in the way that I was taught, in the US. But our professor in my third class, she said two things that caused me to, started delving into understanding who I am, right? She said, you were kept into slavery for over 400 years for two reasons, right? She said, by force, of course, tricky, those kind of things. But then purposely keeping information, knowledge of who you are and yourselves from you. And that triggered something in me. And that absolute moment I pitched up in the class and looked around, there's probably only about 5, 6 other, black people in there, Americans, 1 or 2 Bahamians, right? And it was like, what is this information then? Because always prior to that, I felt not understanding, not knowing who I was, because, we're taught about a white Jesus, we're taught about a history of Arawaks, but not really depth into Africa, right? So I started personal research. And like you said, I've read about these things in the books. I've watched the National Geographic Channel growing up. You've seen these on TV. You know the fact is that this is where we come from, but how, you don't necessarily know. And to have then met my partner and then actually be there on the ground and be accepted finally once again. The emotion is still tingling as we experience it and talk about it right now. It gives a sense of empowerment, a sense of comfort. W. Du Bois says, we fight two minds, one of the European mind and then one of the African mind. This is the first time I've been able to tangibly embrace that and see it face to face. And as one of the posts in our Facebook group said, as the Bahamas was accepting the British royal family, we were in Ghana being received wholeheartedly by the African royalty. And the profound feeling of that is immense, and this is something that you said that we have to continue this information to get more of who we are, to know this type of information and be acquainted and actually be able to go there on the ground and touch it and experience it for themselves.
Yeah. No, there's nothing like that. As an historian, Dr. Pateman, what was it like for you? Because this is what you do for a living. So what was that experience like for you, bringing this history to life?
It was a profound experience, and I'm going to kind of jump around a little bit here. So in the video that you had on earlier, it talked about, I think, 2 out of 10 people dying on the voyage. But we went to Elmina Castle, which is the oldest slave trading fort in West Africa. And there they told us, and I can't remember if they said 3 out of 10 or 7 out of 10, but it was just profound numbers, died there before going on the voyage.
7 out of 10.
It was 7 out of 10. And right there, that just blew me away, because that's not a number that I had heard or been taught before. But it can just imagine what that felt like. So I was somebody, I'd read about Elmina Castle. I'd seen videos of Elmina Castle. I knew the history of Elmina Castle. But to actually go there and see it, I was just blown away. And I'm not a very emotional person. I think that was the first time on our trip that I started crying.
Wow.
You mentioned food. I'm a foodie. Wherever I go, I like to eat food. And to see their light fish soup, soon as I saw that, I was just like, this is stew fish.
Wow.
It just didn't have flour in it, but
Yeah,
the
yeah.
base of it was stew fish. On the last day, Angelique and I were in the market in Accra, and I saw goat peppers. I saw all the spices we use. And we already talked about seeing our relatives, but just to see the foods we eat, to understand our history better, to be able to tell our narrative better, I was blown away. I'm not a person who's short for words, and on that trip several times I just didn't know what to say.
I know the feeling, man. When I found coconut tart in South Africa, they call it something else, but it was coconut tart. I was like, my grandma used to make this is coconut tart.
And like on our way to Princesstown, Pokasu, we overnighted in a small town that they call Buswar now, but the traditional name is Ulasua. And on the menu at the place we stayed, they had barracuda.
You serious?
I wanted it so badly, but they were already closed because I love barracuda.
Well, guess what? I ain't eating barracuda yet, and I ain't eating today either.
I'm an adventuresome person with food. I'll eat anything anywhere. So, but just to see those kinds of things, because I'd always thought for some reason that barracuda was our side of the Atlantic fish.
Yeah.
But to see it on the menu there, and to see it on the menu in several different places, just changed our perspective. During our ceremony, they put cerasee necklaces on us.
Wow.
And I forget what they call it there, but cerasee is their most powerful herb. They use it for everything medicinal, and they use it for protection. What do we use it for? It's our most powerful herb. We use it for protection. As kids, I know I drank it every Saturdays just as a vitamin booster, as much as I hated it, but still.
I know,
it just shows that connection. And
Absolutely.
These types of things, Chris has been telling me about this for a while, sharing his research with me to help him out. And I told him that just being there really shows how powerful the research he's been doing really is. And I think once the book is out, people are going to be blown away with what he's found. It's a really authentic collection of historic documents and oral histories that the narrative he's woven together is outstanding.
But you know what I think it speaks to? And you guys can jump in on this. It speaks to the strength and resolve of our ancestors, that they would have been able to survive all of the atrocities that they faced and still hold on to some semblance of their culture and identity that would have survived all of these hundreds of years later. I think that speaks volumes.
Michelle,
Their resolve.
I want to say, you're saying that they were able to hold on to some. It seems as if we were able to hold on to everything.
Wow.
Because there was not one thing that I experienced there that I don't experience here. One of the things for me, everyone that knows me knows my love for Cat Island. And when I touched down in Pocasoo, I felt that same sense of peace and calm that I feel in Cat Island.
Mm-hmm.
The exact same thing, you know. Like Michael would have said, when we had the light fish soup, that you couldn't tell me that was stew fish. I'm an okra lover, and I had okra soup there.
Mm-hmm.
It was a little bit different from ours, but it was okra soup.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so we brought the food. We have the Cersei. That was, to me, that was one of the biggest things, because we not only brought Cersei with us here, but it meant the same thing to us after all those years, all those hundreds of years later. It still means the exact same thing.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not like we brought some things back. And to go and to learn about John Coy, and this for me was so much, because everyone who knows me knows as well my passion and love for John Canoe. And to know that, I always say when persons ask about the Junkanoo Commandos and how it is that we're able to accomplish so much, where we get so much resistance, or we don't get the kind of financial support that we seek.
Mm-hmm.
We always say that we are guided by our ancestors. That is how we move. And I can tell you without a shadow of a doubt that when I arrived in Pocasoo, I realized that the ancestor that moves the Junkanoo Commandos is John Coy himself.
Wow.
Believe that.
We have a caller on the line. Caller, welcome to GPS.
Good afternoon, Michelle. How are you doing today?
Great. How are you?
All right, and good afternoon to your guests. I'm going to mention a particular traditional Bahamian delicacy, and I'd like for your guests to let me know if they heard about this in Africa or even enjoyed it while they were there. Barnabas bean soup.
What kind of bean soup?
Barnabas.
Barnabas?
Barnabas bean soup.
Okay.
I had some bean stew. I had that a couple of times, so I don't know if that's it, but I became addicted to that.
Well, Barnabas is a very big bean. It's got to be boiled twice in order to eat it. The first time you boil it, it's to take off the outer skin. That's got to be thrown away. The second time you boil it, of course, is to cook it. My grandparents, who were from Cat Island, they introduced us to that, and that's one of the most healthy food items that I have ever had, growing up. And the reason I'm bringing that up, Michelle and guests, is because before Angelique talked, I was just thinking that, hearing the similarities between Africa and the Bahamas, it is not surprising to me that we yet still have so many of those similarities, because, as Angelique said, we basically retain all of those.
Yes.
Here in the Bahamas that our ancestors from Africa brought over here. And that is one of the things that I like about my African heritage, simply because of the fact that the way of life is and still is so healthy. When you go in America or to Europe or to Canada or wherever, Europe, so much stuff is processed that I'm sure if anybody was to go on Cat Island or Andros in the bush and Africa in the bush, you couldn't tell the difference between the two places. And and I had wonderful memories growing up around my grandparents. That's why I was able to resonate with that comment when Angelique mentioned it, and I wanted to find out if anybody knew about Barnabas soup. Look it up sometime, please. Barnabas bean soup is one of the richest, healthiest liqueurs out there that one can actually eat. So, I just wanted to make that contribution myself.
I'm gonna have to ask if that's the soup that I kept asking for.
Angelique had it with every meal.
Say that again.
I said Angelique had it with every meal.
I hear that. Wow. Why? I see Nana is back because he was having some technical issues and he's back on now. And we're talking about the experiences that you guys would have had in Ghana that made it a very real thing, that we truly are connected. Let's talk about the work of the foundation and why you felt it was important to make that connection. Anybody can jump in.
Yeah, well, I could actually bring in something that I heard that I think you commented on an event of atonement, right? When you had a bunch of African dignitaries coming over to atone for, I think it was supposed to be the transatlantic slave trade.
The role of their ancestors in selling off
perfect. Okay. Well, this is one of the precise reasons why I founded this foundation, because I here to tell you right now that not only is that borderline crazy, it is completely false, and it's a completely mythological narrative of Africans enslaving other Africans. You understand? Just from a layman's point of view, without any research, let's look at Gorée Island off the coast of Senegal, and let's compare that to Paris, France. You know, when we look at what was done in the transatlantic slave trade, we have to remember, simply put, that the transatlantic slave trade destroyed West Africa, and it built up the Western world, specifically Western Europe. So just to give one example, to bring it a little close to home, the Moss family, who was there at Great Hope Plantation and True Marine Plantation right there in Crooked Island, they became the 5th largest exporters of West Indian cotton to Liverpool. Out of all of the nations, all of the towns, all of the villages, Crooked Island was number 5, and they were only functioning for about 20 years when the rest of them were functioning for almost 100 years, right? But we were taught that slavery was not profitable in the Bahamas. Now, there's a man named John Moss. There's a book about him called John Moss of Otterspool, who is considered the railroad pioneer of the Industrial Revolution. And he used not only the compensation money that his family got at emancipation, but all of that money that was made and pushed through their cotton textiles that they own. Long story short, this man, John Moss, built the first intercity railroad in human history. And he did that using the money that was made in Crooked Island. Yet we have African leaders who have a very, very poor historical interpretation, who look at the past with a 21st century mindset. You see, because we do not respect African diversity. You know, and it's no fault of ours, and it's not to chastise anybody. But even now, you know, we're saying Ghana, we're saying Africa, we're not even saying Ahanta. Yet when we look at Western Europe, you know, you could look at the war going on right now. Nobody will ever dare say, well, look at these Europeans fighting amongst themselves. However, when we look at our genocide and the way that we all got here, all of us who are Africans with Scottish surnames, Welsh names, this is a genocide. And it turns into something where we are the only people blaming ourselves for genocide. Well, when you follow the money, when you follow what was made, it is absolutely borderline stupidity for African groups to be apologizing for the transatlantic slave trade, particularly on the premise of this blanket statement where you lump all Africans into one category. So when an Ahanta goes up against a Fante, they just say, look at these Black people enslaving themselves. But when the French fought the Germans in World War II, even though they are less diverse than almost any two groups that you could pick from Africa, we don't blanket them in the same way. And so this is one of the reasons why this foundation is around, to stop these harmful narratives. And at the end of the day, what we are doing as African people is blaming ourselves for our own genocide. And when you look at it again, it boils down to us not respecting African diversity. So when a Yoruba goes up against a Fawn, we just say, oh, well, look at these Black people enslaving each other. And then you have people, and I'll call a name, like Trisha Nuabani, sorry. She's like a Nigerian Candace Owens, who apologizes for her great-grandfather's participation in the transatlantic slave trade, even though he was operating in the 1860s and 1870s. But they ready to come to the Bahamas, even though slavery stopped decades before that, apologizing. It is absolutely asinine for Africans.
Where did this false narrative come from?
This
because
false
that's what we've all
narrative,
been taught.
This false narrative came as a part of British propaganda, mostly, particularly here in the Bahamas. You see, the British made the most money from the transatlantic slave trade, even though they weren't participating as long as the Spanish and the Portuguese, just to name a few examples. And this myth and this lie was perpetuated during the Victorian era leading up to the scramble for Africa. And it was done for two main reasons: to vindicate Europeans of the money that was made and the atrocities that were committed. And it was also made to propagandize and to justify the up and coming scramble for Africa. This was happening during the time of scientific racism, when they used to take the bodies of our kings and queens and send them to Europe for scientific experimentation. And if you notice in the ceremony, they called the name Badu Bantu II. This is what happened to the last great king of Ahanta. Yet when you look at records, European records of the Ahanta people, they talk about how these men were savages because they used to behead Dutch governors and put the head on a pike as a warning to other Europeans not to come there and try to trade in slaves. You see, so it's all about historical interpretation. Again, make the parallel to World War II. For example, you even had a group called the Judenrat. You know, these people were in acute survival mode. And that was one force in Europe during World War II. But we don't never place the blame on any European group that conformed to the Nazi military might. So why do we do it to Africans who are fighting against numerous nations who saw them as less than human and doing this? Essentially, in acute survival mode, it was just like if all of us were in a room and someone run in this room right now with a machine gun and say, one gotta die and one gotta be a slave. All of us in there who friends and family, we can fight and we can do all, because we are now in acute survival mode. And as I close on this point, there is a metaphor that we love to use, right? We like to talk about crabs in a barrel and crabs in a bucket, and how these black crabs are, and this has always been perpetuated. This is also rooted in these same issues that I'm speaking about right now. But we forget two of the most important points when we're talking about that. Number one, crabs do not live in buckets, and they do not live in barrels. And when they are, number two, and when they are placed in those barrels, they are now in acute survival mode. Perpetual acute survival mode. And when Africans who have been in a perpetual acute survival mode for 500 years, for some reason, we do not sympathize with this. We just think that we was just there, couldn't wait for somebody to come to Africa so that we could just run and sell our quote unquote brothers and sisters to Europeans. They have something called slave narratives that I encourage everybody to read, where you have people that were physically taken from Africa and enslaved, and they wrote their biographies. If you could find a single one of them saying that their own people enslaved them, you know, I gladly concede, but you won't find them because it's not true.
So the question, in other words, we should be asking is, instead of, we have to take a break, so hold on to that thought, okay? But the question we should be asking, instead of, you know, when you're talking about the black crab syndrome, it shouldn't be black crabs trying to pull each other out of the down in the barrel, but who put them in the barrel in the first place?
Exactly.
That's the question.
Right. And furthermore, we are in a situation where when
I want you to stick a pin in that thought, because we got to take a break. All right.
No problem.
Don't forget the thought, and Sora, you don't forget yours either, because I'm coming back to you all on the other side. You know, we got to pay our bills. I got to make sure my sponsors get their props. So we're gonna take this quick commercial break, and then on the other side, we're gonna go to Nana and my Sora Angelique to find out those thoughts that they were so burning to bring forward. This is GPS Global Paradigm Shift on Global 99.5 FM.
Your body's immune system is under constant pressure from things like stress, lack of exercise, and toxins in the environment. It's crucial to be proactive and support your immune system with the nutrients it needs to function effectively. But it's often hard to get these nutrients from food alone. Introducing fast-acting Zinc Plus Immune Support by Longevity. Unlike zinc-only supplements, Zinc Plus Immune Support builds on the proven power of zinc and adds complementary nutrients to give your immune system extra support. Vitamin D helps balance the effects of zinc, while our proprietary blend of natural fruit and root extracts provides the extra help your immune system needs to work against daily stressors. And we've included Youngevity's exclusive plant-derived minerals to give your body the minerals it needs, but can't get from food alone. And because Zinc Plus Immune Support is delivered in a great-tasting, sugar-free, berry-flavored lozenge, it encourages quicker absorption of all these nutrients into your body. Zinc Plus Immune Support. Zinc plus the extra support your body needs to promote a healthy immune system. To learn more, contact your Youngevity associate.
Welcome to Sunshine Auto, the hardest place on the planet for a rims, tints, and tires.
We are your auto superstore for rims, Lexani, Azaras, Trueform, Western, Lux, Fuel, Tracklight, Tough, Rough Racing, Velocity, Mud, All-Terrain, and low-profile tires. Cars, homes, and commercial window tinting. At Sunshine Auto, we put God first and customer is king.
Blasted love.
It's gotten harder and harder to get your daily requirement of vital nutrients from food alone. Without additional vitamin and nutrient support, your health and well-being can suffer drastically. That's why Z-Radical was specifically formulated. It combines a blend of antioxidant-rich vitamins, minerals, and botanicals with the protective powers of fucoidan to help fill the gaps from lack of nutrients in your foods. The core of Z-Radical is fucoidan, a naturally occurring polysaccharide that helps stimulate immune reaction, protecting you against inflammation and oxidative stress. We harvest this powerful mineral-rich nutrient from brown seaweed, harvested only from the world's most pristine ocean waters to ensure the purest quality. It's then extracted using cold process technology to ensure maximum levels of bioavailability. Then we add essential vitamins that help to protect your cardiovascular and nervous systems and are crucial for optimal immune and neurological function. Z-Radical also includes a proprietary blend of delicious antioxidant-rich fruits and berries. This great-tasting combination helps your body combat free radical imbalances that can contribute to a variety of degenerative conditions like arthritis and heart disease. Z-Radical. Experience the power of fucoidan with antioxidant-rich berries, 8 essential vitamins, and more to provide you with potent health benefits. To learn more, contact your Youngevity associate.
Welcome back to GPS, Global Paradigm Shift on Global 99.5 FM. Michelle Malcolm in your company, and today we're talking about the journey home and reconnecting with our motherland, specifically Ghana, West Africa, where it has been shown that this is where we as Bahamians have descended from. And so we're talking to a group of Bahamians who made the trek back to Ghana to learn more about our historical connection and what that experience was like. And I know both Angelique and Nana wanted to make a point prior to the break. So ladies first, we're going to go to Angelique first, and then we're going to come back to you, Nana. Angelique, take it away.
I'm just going to make 2 very swift comments. You know, the phrase where they say that until the lion tells his story, the hunter will always be the hero.
Yeah.
Well, the lions are now awake, and the true story is being told about the hunt. And the second point is, this is why Christopher is Nana. And this is why he's gotten the title of John Quite II. He himself is a fierce warrior, and he will be one of the persons who will assist in getting the land of the Ahantas back to their glory days as to what it was. We are now living our destiny. This is our time. This is prophecy unfolding before our very eyes.
Time for us to tell our own story. Nana, you wanted to say something prior to the break.
Yeah, you know, and just to add to it, to what the point I was making just now, again, this is no fault of ours. We have to get out of this notion where we blame ourselves for our own genocide. Of course, this is not to vindicate even any African living today or in the past that may have been complicit. Of course not, but the blame is not to be put there. Another point that should be made, now that I got that off my chest. Now, how many European corporations, how many European nations you see doing any voyages of atonement, right? And you know, we publishing 2 books by the end of this year. The first one is going to be like I said, putting the Bahamas on the map in the global Ma'afa struggle, and also using Bahamian history as a microcosm. But the second one is an analysis of the transatlantic slave trade and all of the slave trading that was going on in the Bahamas, where I got the names of the captains, the names of the owners, the places they left from, and not a single one of these were owned by any African people. As a matter of fact, there's one ship where the average age of the ship was 11 years old. 90% of the people on the ship being female, and more than 95% of these little girls under the age of 14 were raped. You understand? Before that ship even came here. But we here, the focus is just completely there. You know, our crosshairs, if you will, should not be in Africa. You know, we should be looking to return home. And the history of the Ahanta people really changes this narrative. And then you could parallel this to the way that we have got all of these myths and misinformation implanted in the origin of our Junkanoo story. Things like Junkanoo was a slave that came to the Bahamas and the British gave us a day off to celebrate. Things like, you know, they've discovered that he was a wealthy merchant, so they automatically assumed because he was a wealthy African merchant, he must have been a slave trader, when he was actually an abolitionist. And the Hanta people have a long line of soldiers, warriors, leaders, and kings that fought against the transatlantic slave trade. And this is why in the mid 1600s, they numbered around between 15 to 20 million, and today they are less than 2 million all around the world because of the roles that they played. Okay, and furthermore, when we look at this, remember all of these forts that we actually visited. Ghana has more forts than any other nation in West Africa that were used for the slave trade. Not a single one of these forts, not one fort in Ghana or anywhere in Africa was built by Africans for the transatlantic slave trade. All of these were built by Europeans, named after Europeans, had governors in them that controlled it. And as soon as their presence came there, they also implemented the social dynamics and the social construct of race that was now being implemented in Africa that did not exist. So to say, look at these black people enslaving themselves is completely false. You understand? And so we have to really take a new look, shift the paradigm, if you will, and think about how is it that we are the greatest sufferers of genocide, and yet everything seems to fall back on us. Oh, we should have done this better. We should have done that better, you know? Yeah.
We got to talk about how we change that. But before
Can I add a point to this also, though?
Go ahead.
Yeah.
So there's two things that really gets me upset when we talk about the transatlantic slave trade. I think we've covered one in depth, but the second one, and I hear this constantly by Bahamians, Bahamian historians, other people in the Caribbean, the notion that slavery was easy in the Bahamas.
Oh, yeah.
This is another one of those myths that I think we really need to dispel. I think Christopher outlined great just how profitable John Moss was. This isn't something that we're taught, but the 5th largest cotton exporter, that should tell you in itself that slavery here was not easy. The brutality of some of the people used for the abolition movement, like who we call Poor Black Kate from the Morse Plantation, her story was enough to drive Europeans or the British to put an end to this whole system. So that shows you once again, this was not an easy venture here. Anybody who's living in force, not living free, is not going to have an easy life. So I think we need to put an end to that narrative also.
And then we also have to understand that in the eyes of the oppressor, our ancestors weren't even 100% human.
Right.
Which is why
they weren't human, not 100%. They weren't human.
Yes, they were chattel. Chattel slavery is what our ancestors suffered from, which is unprecedented from any other incident of slavery in history. Chattel slavery, yeah.
Wow. We have a caller on the line. Oh, and before we go to the caller, the telephone numbers to call 326-0271, 326-0271, 326-0272, 326-0272, or our WhatsApp line, 824-9952, 824-9952. Let's go to the phone lines.
Yes, good afternoon. It's Michelle Malcolm, and good afternoon to your guest. The original. Let me give thanks to the Almighty God through Jesus Christ of Nazareth, enveloped in the Holy Spirit. And I want to say good afternoon to my mortal boss, former Prime Minister Hubert Alexander, England, God's leader, and the nation's godly led in administration under Philip Edward Brave Davis and the 7 women. The breath of life is colorless to your young men and women. God is in the genes of each and every divinely created human being. Now, I commend you on your new religion that you are forming and you reached out to Ghana, because I do believe Ghana, what's his name? President Barack Obama's father is from Ghana. And when it comes down to when folks say about the reparations, we here in the Bahamas, we had people here from 1200, okay, from the 1200s. So you all said the slavery that you are speaking to started like in the 1600s. Now, we must get an understanding. That is one of the reasons why I said that the biblical established new knowledge is one that brings divine comfort. And you will be able to command the physical and the spiritual realm in coming to your divine intangibilities that would bring that inspirational, motivational healing to one and all. Now, it's by choice, because Jesus Christ of Nazareth, they tried to color him, but the breath of life that is essential is colorless. And I believe you all on that, because we have people look like everybody in all colors. I can assure you of that. Okay? So God bless you all, and you all take care. Bye.
Thanks for calling. I don't know if I missed something, but I don't recall anybody here saying that y'all were starting a new religion. Did I miss something?
So to speak on a question that you said, right, Michelle? So what is some of the purpose of Sankofa Flamingo?
Yeah.
It's to dispel some of these myths, some of these dark castings out that we have on a culture that is literally us. We just talked about it, and it almost begs to have to question, what is culture? Culture is something that isn't created. It's literally intrinsic in within us. And this is what Sankofa is going to delve into as we do the research and as we through our media platforms put it out there, because we have been indoctrinated through propaganda and through media, and it's only for us to do the same to recorrect these stories, these narratives. This is a culture that spans far beyond any European culture that has been. So I mean, it's just to create a correct narrative utilizing the same platforms that has indoctrinated us for so long.
All right. And speaking of culture, what is culture? This is a question that we hear come up quite often here in the Bahamas, and the answer depends on who you talk to. But quite frankly, and I think that the work that you guys have been doing and the trek back to Ghana really helps to put into perspective what culture really should be about, because culture is your way of life, who you are, what you do, how you speak, what you eat, and yet so much of it is tied into where we came from. And so how does this now shape your narrative as it relates to Bahamian culture? What did this whole journey do for you as far as that is concerned? Anybody can jump in.
I'd like to say a little something. All this did for me was strengthened everything that I knew and believed in who I am as a Bahamian. And now I can honestly say who I am as an Ahanta, because I know that is where I'm from. To be able to see someone who looked exactly like Uncle Harold, someone who looked exactly like Uncle Animal, we're eating the same thing. We're using the same bush for medicine. We still know to go to the bush to be healed. They still go to the bush to be healed. They understand everything we understand the same way with the healing properties of the ocean. When we stayed in Boswa. Okay, thank you. I saw a conch shell outside of my door, and I was like, oh, let me find out if they eat conch shell. And they look at me like I was weird, like, of course we eat conch.
Wow.
There was not one thing that I experienced there that felt foreign to me. not one thing.
Amazing.
And one of the things Sankofa Flamingo Foundation is doing is we are in the process of organizing regular pilgrimages to Ahanta land from the Bahamas. And the first one is going to be in October of this year. We're also going to be, from the clip, we're going to be assisting them in developing that cultural heritage product. The history of the Ahantas is so rich and diverse. The world needs to know what happens there, what happened there. They need to understand the wealth of that particular kingdom. And we are going to be working with them to develop that product, to bring people there for them to experience the land of the Ahantas.
As well, real quick, as well, the cultural exchange is a strong component of what we're going to be doing as well. As we are developing there is a lot of the culture that we are talking about, but it still has to be made prominent here in the Bahamas, and I think will add to a lot of our continued development or better development. I think it can very much so have a deep impact onto our criminality mindsets. At the same time, once we get to be embracing who we are, I mean, I am an empowered, different person now, actually standing on the ground there. That's something I feel our young men can heavily take an influence on and have some encouragement towards them and shift maybe different in their actions.
That's fascinating. We have a call on the line. Caller, welcome to GPS.
Good afternoon, Ms. Malcolm.
Hi.
Very interesting show. I'm enjoying it.
Thank you.
You asked the question, how do we go about changing, I guess, our view of the whole slavery system? One way we can begin is to, first of all, stop referring to the situation of those who were as slaves. You should never refer to yourself as a slave. They were enslaved because they did not volunteer for that. So technically they were almost, or in essence, prisoners of war. As long as you see yourself as someone who was enslaved, that means you never agreed to that. Another thing we need to concentrate on and focus on is our history. Our history did not start with slavery. Slavery is it's a very critical part of what happened to us in the past. And we should never forget it. Never, ever forget it. In fact, we ought to use it to make sure it never happen again. But I think a lot of times, because it was so and such a damaging thing, it almost caused us to believe that that is where we started. Our history goes way beyond slavery. And in addition to doing the research, I would encourage the members of the team to go beyond slavery, find out what the Africans were doing in Africa long before the Europeans got there. When they had Kemet and Timbuktu, and those who, at the time when they referred to Africa as the Cable Land, go way back. You're talking ancient history long before the Bible. If you truly want to understand who the African is, go way beyond slavery. Go way beyond slavery. Then your eyes will really be open. Because if we start our history at slavery, we will forever be lost. We must go beyond slavery. And there's a lot of history beyond slavery that we need to dig into as we try to pull this whole thing together to see where we really came from and how we got to where we are today.
Okay, thank you. How do you guys respond to that? Has your work gone further?
Can I jump in first on that, though?
Go on, Dr. Pigman. Yeah.
All right. So I first want to say to the caller, you're 100% right. I know better, and I should not, and we should not call people slaves. We should call them enslaved. The call is 100% correct. And yes, I know better. But we are working on more than just telling the story of slavery and the transatlantic slave trade. During one of our meetings with some of the traditional councils, now obviously Christopher had been multiple times, but the rest of us, this was our first trip. and to have the traditional council say to us, we like your spirit. We want you to tell our story. We've not told our story before. Tell our story. And then they started listing off these large international organizations and groups that have come in asking to tell their story, and they've refused it. And they pointed to us and they said, we want you to tell our story. And that story is a lot more than the story of the transatlantic slave trade. So we are going to do that. So we've talked about the book, that the first book that's coming out, and Chris is working on a second book. We're also working on a documentary on our voyage, on our pilgrimage. But we're also in the process of developing a larger documentary to really place the Bahamas and the Ahanta as the center of this cultural celebration we call Junkanoo today. It's a larger story than, or a larger festival than I realize, and I think it's larger than a lot of us realize. It's a global story, and we're going to do our best to tell that story.
Christopher, Nana, you want to jump in?
Yeah. Well,
sorry about that.
Well, I couldn't agree more with the caller. And of course, we don't have time or anything to delve into everything that we found, but we have been going far beyond slavery. And as a matter of fact, even the research that we're doing that coincides with the transatlantic slave trade is not the proverbial slavery. Remember now, this man that we celebrate, John Canoe, John Quao, was a merchant, a general, and a hero among the Ahanta, the Nzima, the Fante, and even the Ashanti people. All commemorate this man in some way, shape, or form. And that is because of the military feats that he committed against the European transatlantic slave trade in that region of Africa. Just to do one or two things. And this is a man who used to charge European ships 6 times more than he would charge Africans just to pass through his village. You understand? Or even to go up the river. And the more that we learn about these people and him, of course, prior to the transatlantic slave trade, their history takes us all the way back to the Nile Valley. I heard the caller mention Kemet. Well, they don't specify Kemet, but they actually specify Kush. And when you actually follow the ancient migrations, what they like to refer to as prehistory, even though I reject that term, migrations of Africans, they are very much enthralled in that. And they are also some of the main people that made up the ancient kingdom, erroneously referred to as ancient Ghana. The real name was Wagadu. And their capital was Kumbi Sala. And if you was to Google Kumbi Sala, the capital of ancient Wagadu, which is where these people came from probably 1,000 years ago, and this is recent history for them as well, long before the transatlantic slave trade, however, you will see how rich their history is. And when you look at Kumbi Sala, you can't tell the difference between Kumbi Sala and any site that you see along the Nile Valley, as a matter of fact. So we are going very much deeper and past the transatlantic slave trade. These people who even suck their teeth, when the men bragging, what they do, they say, just like us. So we could go on and on about the similarities, and of course it goes far beyond slavery. But it was still funny when we realized these fellas were saying, I think they're talking about some lady or something. Fella get this lady, and he's bragging, and he's like, and I say, what? No, that's us all day.
And
Still
the way they do 666,
they're giving us trouble.
Oh
yeah.
But it's not as how we do it.
Yeah,
they do it just to kind of call your attention. We've just switched it a bit more to call specifically women's attention, but they seek as well too.
Right.
Wow. Yeah, they seek just as much or more than we do.
More.
Oh, yeah.
So a bit of our answering, his question to what the caller said. We're going to focus in on subject matter that every single Bahamian, everyone in the Caribbean can touch. Right? And once we're able to show the narrative, the true narrative in that, then we could delve and expand more into what is the culture of West Africa, the culture of who is us, and how that assists us in shifting our outlook into what has been called a dark continent, right? Which is crazy. So it's just a focal point, an entry point that we saw is not a low-lying fruit, but a very unique emotional connection to who we all are. And we'll be expanding beyond that to shift this narrative and its expanse, going way beyond slavery and into now.
Because truth be told, this doesn't only impact us here in the Bahamas, but there are these tentacles that reach throughout the Caribbean, certain southern United States. It's like all intertwined and connected, and the work that you guys are doing are really shedding light on these connections. What are you hoping to achieve through this work? Bring awareness, reconnect us to the homeland, but the way forward.
Let me take this one.
Yeah, I want you to think. I want you to think on that because we're coming up where we have to take a break. So I want you to think on the answer. Before we go to the break, we're going to go into the break with this video that you shot while you were actually in Ghana and talking about the deep connections that you saw. Let's go to that clip and then go straight to the break, Jason.
Now we passing through Anumabu. This is actually the spot where the third slave ship, sanctionable I should say, slave ship that came directly from Africa to the Bahamas, purposefully came directly from this port right here. Again, this was another place where John Canoe's, Gianqua's influence was definitely felt. As a matter of fact, Anumabu is also where William Fante, William Answer was from, who was enslaved in Barbados. He was a Fante prince. And when he went to Barbados, he actually mentioned Gianqua or John Canoe by name. And when he experienced slavery in Barbados and all, he literally was saying like, wow, I wish we had followed John Canoe. I wish we had done what he had said and all that. Maybe it wouldn't be like this. William Answer actually ended up being returned home from slavery in Barbados. And then when he came here, he left Fante land and moved to Liberia, Sierra Leone to contribute to the fight of anti-slavery as well. And so these are aspects of our history that have kind of been swept under the rug or unacknowledged. Of course, the narrative surrounding the transatlantic slave trade is always of Africans participating or being kind of pawns in this game. A narrative that, in my opinion, has been highly overplayed. But when we see the story of John Canoe that we have here, it really goes against that narrative, and it shows a narrative of Africans fighting prior to being conquered by Europeans, and then that kind of illicit mode of that illicit slave trade began happening in some of these areas.
And why is this important to the Bahamas?
It's very important to the Bahamas because this directly links us. This is literally one of the ports, one of the villages that some of our first ancestors came from. And remember, the first 3 ships came from these regions, from central to like western Ghana, south central, I should say, to southwest Ghana. And this is what set that foundational culture for all Bahamians. This is why John Canoe is the predominant national festival in the Bahamas. And as the other dozens and dozens of slave ships began to come in, even from other areas, there had already been people, specifically from Ahanta and Zima and Fante, who had already known this John Canoe character, who had been living in the Bahamas for many decades, even before other enslaved Africans started to come in from other regions in Africa. So, for example, in Mali, we know that the Gombe drum comes from the djembe drum of Mali. And of course, when those people that came from that region in Africa came to the Bahamas through the transatlantic slave trade, they would have already met all of these Africans coming from this region in Ghana who were already crazy about this man, John Canoe. You understand? And already had this culture already established there. And so even though John Canoe is the modern contemporary parade is a mixture of all of these things together, you understand? You can see how that base gets set. So it literally be like, Trinidadians and Jamaicans moving to the Bahamas, and then 2 or 3 generations later, they also doing John Canoe just like us. You understand? Yeah.
Fascinating stuff. We have a couple of comments and then we're going to go to break. Rain says, excellent show. Miss Malcolm and guests, very informative. And Naya, I'm not sure how to pronounce that. Educative. Educative, unknowable. That's where I'm from. Welcome to the show. Okay, we got to take a quick break. When we come back, what is the point of all of this research? They ain't just do this because they ain't had nothing else to do. There is a plan, and we're going to talk about that plan on the other side of the break. Stay with us. This is GPS, Global Paradigm Shift on Global 99.5 FM. We'll be back after these words from our sponsors.
Understanding your microbiome, also known as your gut ecosystem, can change everything you thought you knew about nutrition, digestion, immunity, and metabolism. Keeping your gut ecosystem healthy and balanced is essential. Ultimate Microbiome by Longevity was specifically formulated to optimize this ecosystem. It provides the advanced support your gut needs through prebiotic, probiotic, and postbiotic supplementation. Our unique blend of probiotics includes Lactobacillus and Plantarum, healthy bacteria that can help prevent harmful bacteria from taking over your gut. Increasing your gut's population of beneficial bacteria creates a more balanced gut microbiome, which has been shown to aid in weight loss, skin health, sleep, mood, and may even help with seasonal allergies. Ultimate Microbiome also promotes the production of postbiotics. Postbiotics are key to help regulate your gastrointestinal health. To enhance digestion, Digizyme Multi-Enzyme Complex, a blend of 5 specific enzymes, has been added to Ultimate Microbiome. It can help break down food so your body can better absorb nutrients. Plus, we've added our proprietary I-26 Hyperimmune Egg Powder to aid in the elimination of disease-causing gut bacteria and help your body balance its immune response. Ultimate Microbiome, the scientific, proprietary, and holistic approach to gut health that helps optimize your body's entire gut ecosystem. To learn more, contact your Longevity associate.
Welcome to Sunshine Auto, the hardest place on the planet for a rims, pinch, and tires.
We are your auto superstore for rims, Lexani, Azaras, Trueform, Western, Lux, Fuel, Trackline, Tough, Rough Racing, Velocity, Mud, All-Terrain, and low-profile tires. Cars, homes, and commercial window tinting. At Sunshine Auto, we put God first and customer is king.
Glasses loud.
To stay healthy, it's crucial to make sure you get the nutrition you need every day. But it's difficult to get all your recommended vitamins and minerals from food alone. Even in the United States, 94% of people are deficient in at least one nutrient. Beyond Tangy Tangerine 2.0 by Longevity is a simple, convenient, and affordable way to help your body get the essential nutrients it needs. It's an advanced plant-driven multivitamin mineral complex that contains certified organic whole foods, trace minerals, and antioxidants. BTT 2.0 supports your body's natural defense system with a proprietary blend of energy-boosting and body-loving nutrients, plus prebiotics, probiotics, amino acids, and enzymes that support digestion. With an unusually high ORAC score of 8,000, you get even more antioxidants to help combat free radicals that can cause damage to your cells. But to get the most benefit and value from any multivitamin, your body must be able to break down the nutrients so you can fully absorb them. Otherwise, they'll just pass through your system without doing any good. Beyond Tangy Tangerine 2.0 was specially formulated with synergizing cofactors to ensure you get maximum nutrient absorption. Beyond Tangy Tangerine 2.0 is the easiest way to give your body the balance and complete daily vitamin mineral supplement it needs for optimal support of your overall health. To learn more, contact your Longevity associate.
This portion of GPS is brought to you by Tiki Bikini Hut at Junkanoo Beach. Great food, cool tropical drinks, and family fun in the sun.
Welcome back to GPS, Global Paradigm Shift on Global 99.5 FM. Michelle Malcolm in your company today, along with my guests. And we are talking about the journey home, a trek all the way back to Ghana, West Africa, to reconnect with our ancestors, relatives who remained in the motherland while our ancestors were brought to this part of the world as a result of the transatlantic slave trade. Now, before we go any further, I have to say I apologize, and I have to give much respect to my soror because I need to refer to her by her official African name, okay? Much respect. So forgive me if I pronounce this wrong, soror. Queen Mother Asa Fosheriba
I'll take that
Close.
for now.
You did better than us on the first round.
Asa for Sheraba, warrior queen. That's an
Oh,
AKA for you right there.
Yes.
See my queen with the jewelry?
Mm-hmm.
She is the right hand of Jan Kwa II, the protector of the women and children. So much respect, Queen Mother. Much respect to you.
Yes.
All right. So let's talk about the work that you guys you did, and the reason why this work is so important going forward. Because y'all ain't just do all this work for nothing.
I can start it off and I can be very brief. First of all, what this actually does do is it brings intrinsic value to our foremost national commemoration, Junkanoo. And my mother from Trinidad, so nobody think I throw in shade on Carnival, but let's just make a loose comparison between the Carnival and the Junkanoo. You know, Carnival is about fun, and it's been like Junkanoo as well. It's been very much diluted by Eurocentric holidays. So, you know, Carnival is associated with Lent and getting your sins out before Lent start and all of that. But of course, it does have an African origin. But like with Junkanoo, however, it's not really about fun. You know, we don't play Junkanoo, we rush. You understand? And so this man, Jan Kwao, the overall Ahanta people, the village of Princestown and Olowosua, right there in Ahanta, West, southwestern Ghana, all of these places, whether we know it or not, to borrow from Brother Robin, a term he loves to use, it has a precious and invaluable intrinsic value to us. Not just those of us who are stakeholders in Junkanoo, the Bahamas, of course, the Carolinas, Virginia, Georgia, Belize, Honduras, Suriname, Guyana, St. Vincent, the Virgin Islands, Trinidad, St. Kitts, I could go on and on, Cuba, Puerto Rico, you know, but it also holds intrinsic value to the entire African diaspora and all of humankind. Because I'll ask a simple question. There's nothing that all humans like more than to support a people who are in a struggle for freedom. And this is the real spirit of Junkanoo and what it's all about. And through bringing this intrinsic value to Junkanoo, you will see the African diaspora starting to come to the Bahamas in December. They'll go to Belize in January. They'll go to Ghana in October. You understand? And so all of this is about not just reconnecting for us to beat our chest and say, yes, we're African. We're actually looking to empower people through this and through the connections that we seek to make beyond the cultural and heritage connection are also economic connections, you know? And just to add one thing, and how important these cultural exchanges are, before I close, we noticed something very simple. They actually, that little rush out that you saw, they set up a rush out specifically for us to march us to the palace before we did that thing that you saw, that you played. You know, it brought, Angelique was like crying the whole time. She couldn't believe it. But they was doing something that was so simple. And this is something that I know Angelique is extremely passionate about, and all Bahamians are passionate about. Simple words, the monetization of Junkanoo. We spend months and months, all our money, you get people, I don't know how they light off, but the Junkanoo costume look good on Bay Street that morning. You understand? And it's time now for us to really get serious, you know, and this is why we also have been attempting to reach out to the other stakeholders in Junkanoo, to some success and to some failures, but I leave that right there. But this, what they was doing in this parade was so simple, and I was like, why the hell we never thought about this? They were tipping the paraders. So if you like the way the person dance, you come in to give them some money. If you like the way the person costume look, you come in to give them some money. And what we noticed where they had these little pockets of these wealthy people, some Range Rover and thing, and it was like almost like this competition between them, who given, you understand? And this is something that's so simple. This is something that is already a part of our culture, tipping. You know, you slide a little extra $5 for that good service, or you slide a little extra $10 because that waitress was so nice. You know, and we actually are taught techniques on how to get tips from our guests. You know, so we can incorporate tipping in our Junkanoo parade. And then you have the wealthy who will come out there, and this will bring intrinsic value outside of the African diaspora as well. Because you have all of these beautiful costumes. We come, we rush, we break them up, and then that's the end of that. How about we develop some sort of a system where people, they come and they could even bid on these costumes at the end. you know, and this is all about festivaling as well. This is we could go on and on about why we're doing this. And it also places the Bahamas on the map for me, and this almost on a personal level. Being a Pan-African and being in certain international circles of Pan-Africanism, I was always so ashamed in a way. It was all, yeah, you know, Jamaica, we got Queen Nani, who was also from Western Ghana, by the way. Guyana, Kofi, also from Western Ghana, by the way. You know, all of these great heroes, Haiti, John Jacques Dessalines, and all of these different people. But now the Bahamas, we have John Canoe. You know, and this is something that's so unique. Show me another festival where someone is commemorated so directly. You know, this is something that will wake up the African diaspora in changing the historical narrative and bringing unity to us. And also it places us in a way in helping us understand ourselves better. We are descended from warriors who fought against colonization and the transatlantic slave trade. What is more honorable than that? And I'll close right there and let my partners add to what I just said, you know, but there's nothing more honorable than that in my view, you know. And once we learn this story, I think that we will all kind of hop on board. And I think that John Canoe is a parade that we all agree has so much potential, and that potential is not even close to being fulfilled, particularly when we look at the festivals of our neighbors, right?
Yeah. For sure.
With what Christopher has said about being able to monetize John Canoe, the Commandos have started the Bahamas John Canoe Art and Music Festival. We've actually been able to do it successfully for 2 years prior to the pandemic. And I would say this every time a mic comes in front of me now. The only way these things could have been materialized is if the specific ancestor was guiding us during all of this time. And I know as John Canoes, we say when we line up on Bay Street that it's wartime. And that meant so much more when I found out who John Coy was. And when we say the spirit of John Canoe moves us on Bay Street, I closed my eyes and I literally saw him at the end by Pompey Square where we line up. I literally saw him because now I have a face to the name and I know what this is all about. You know, so it was very spiritual for me, that pilgrimage there, knowing what John Canoe means to me and how much of a sacrifice I would have made over the years to let the world know that John Canoe is the greatest show on earth. And now that the narrative can now be expanded, we now know that he was an hunter, and what he did, the narrative is going to be expanded.
Robin, you wanted to jump in?
Yeah, so let's look at the possibilities with that, right? Brother Chris talked about the African diaspora, right? We attract a wide tourism market here, right? But there is a huge African diaspora market that can be brought here as well. And so what we're looking to do is develop the story, develop products, develop tours, develop services that are around a heritage tourism product as well here in the Bahamas, but as well absolutely Princess Town, right? So for the Bahamas, there's an automatic benefit. We're going to expand and exposure more to tourism market that is out there, right? So that's an automatic low-lying fruit that's seeking to be gained as we develop this story, we develop this narrative. Some of the other aspects that we talked about with culture, the influence that culture can have on our day-to-day and how we interact with each other, how we see each other, the identity of who we are helps in how we interact with each other. So that is an absolute next aspect in how we are seeking to influence, wanting to work with AMMC. We've already got a nod with AMMC, Antiquities Monument Museums Corporation. We're seeking to work much more with Ministry of Tourism, Ministry of Culture. We want to work with these entities to be able to influence our culture in the Bahamas as we're going to be developing this heritage tourism product, you know, Princess Town and Western Hunter. So there are some automatic things that, I mean, you can see that was going to be developed or we are going to be working on as an organization.
Fantastic. Now, Michael, from the perspective of an historian, what are you hoping comes out of this work from an academic standpoint?
So my whole career has always been focused on sort of telling the story of the voiceless. So I've always focused primarily on the Lucayans, and then more recently I moved into the transatlantic slave trade and those stories. And actually, you say the word academics. I've started to move away from that whole academic world because I find us to be a little too highfalutin. All of this research that Christopher has done would be shunned by a lot of academics because he doesn't have a bachelor's degree. And that is something that I don't agree with. So academics, we tend to talk amongst ourselves, and we need to stop doing that. We need to talk to the people whose stories we're telling or whose stories we're trying to tell. So my focus in this is going to be about helping the team bring the story to Bahamians, to the diaspora. Yes, the academic parts will be important, but I'm more interested in partnering with education and culture and those organizations and making sure that our story is told properly. One of the things we realized, or at least I realized on this journey, and something Nana has been telling me for a while, but I didn't really see it until this, is that the whole concept of Junkanoo, and I said this earlier, is global. And this research that he's doing and that we've now joined a part of changes our narrative of Junkanoo. And it makes it such a more significant festival. And it's so important that when we celebrate Junkanoo, when we talk about Junkanoo, that we tell this complete narrative. And that's how I see my role in this more than anything else. There's discussion right now about the nomination of Junkanoo as an intangible cultural heritage for the Bahamas. And we hope that this research can be a part of that nomination because the story is just
It has to be.
It has to be. If it's not, we're not telling the story. And so we're reaching out to the UNESCO committee. We're reaching out to the Ministry of Education. We're reaching out to everybody. The story is just, when you see the book, because there's a lot that we're not sharing.
For good reason. For good reason.
For good reason. So the book, Christopher's hoping to have it finished in the next 2 weeks, right, Christopher?
Yeah. Nice. You put that timeline on me.
So once that's done, we hope to have this to print fairly quickly after that, so that we can begin to tell some more of the story, because we want to make sure he gets credit for the narrative that's put out there, for the research that's done. That's why we're a little hesitant to share some of the material. We have the pilgrimage documentary that I'm working on right now and hoping to finish in the next couple of months. And that's going to tell some more of the story. We have the second book, the music video. We cannot forget about Ras Copper's music video that we filmed at various locations in the hinterlands. And just to add to that, it showcases the beauty of that area. When you see Africa on TV, you see destroyed lands, slums, poverty, suffering, but we saw beauty. We're all Bahamians here, and we know a beautiful beach. I was impressed with the beaches. They were a lot more beautiful than I expected. Just there's so much that needs to be shared, and I hope we can do a good job of sharing the story of the Hanta people.
Well, I am still getting over that they eat conch.
Crab too, by the way.
You know, I was asking about the crab. You know, I was asking.
They eat crab too, right on the side of the road selling crab. They don't have it in the cages. They just have it like on this like wire thing, like connected together. But they just eat crab straight through. They spoil it too.
Yes, Michael, they were selling crabs right next to where you were getting all of those spices, remember?
Oh yeah, I saw that.
Yeah, so
fascinating. Really
some other high level stuff, you know, we'd want to have happening as well too, is strengthening the relationship between Ghana and the Bahamas. We see Barbados, they have made as a sister port between those country. So establishing economic powers, economic strength, even setting up a embassy. Why don't we have representation there as a Bahamian embassy there? So these are some of the things that we are on the ground working with the Ministry of Tourism there to again strengthen and just expose us to a whole different world. That is us, man. It is just us that we need to be more connected to.
Well, one of the things that crossed my mind as I was listening to you talk about where this is evolving to as it relates to the video and the book, etc., one of the things that came into my mind was further cross-pollination of the culture as it relates to some kind of theatrical production, telling the story, connecting us with them. I think that would be really powerful.
Oh yeah.
We're going to be doing some historical fiction with some historical documentaries, short documentary series, some movies. All that is because we're lucky to develop a full media studio. We've connected with some guys on the ground there. I mean, the talent is phenomenal.
Yeah.
So we're going to be doing some of that media component aspect. So this is what we're going to be.
That's why we got to make sure we get our shout outs in to our Hunter brothers and sisters over there when we done, you know, because it's, even though you seeing us four here, of course you have my wife Tamara Davis, who is the co-founder of Sankofa Flamingo. You also have Oswald White, aka Ras Copper. You have Philip Davis, Farman, Kwame Finlayson. There are many other people involved, but particularly on the Hunter side, you have Assembly Member, the Honorable Stephen Kenya Arthur, also our partner and our brother. And this guy, I mean, we crack jokes with the Hunter people all the time. If y'all don't want this fella, let us bring him to the Bahamas to come be a politician in the Bahamas, because man, this fella is just the quintessential good politician about the people, you know, and we just hit it off. We've only known each other for about a year, and he is already like one of my best friends because we share so much in common. Of course, I cannot forget who I mentioned earlier, Alice Kofi, oral historian at Princess Town. And of course, a lot of this is done on behalf and with the blessing of Abu Sanin Augustine, your family head and resident chief of Princess Town, who literally, before I came around, he was sitting on this throne that used to belong to John Canute. And then, of course, we have Atomfo Baidu Bonsu, the 15th, and his entire traditional council, our brother Ben, all of the Queen Mothers from the traditional council who made all of this possible, who opened the door for us, you know, and like they say, it's something that we can't describe in words. You have to take the pilgrimage. It's the reason we call it pilgrimage, which may have created some of the confusion. But this is not a religious pilgrimage, even though, of course, there are spiritual aspects, but that is for the individual. But the reason we call it pilgrimage is slightly spiritual because, you know, Christians go to Nazareth, Bethlehem, Muslims go to Mecca. And so those of us who are of African descent, those of us who have ancestors that were victims of the transatlantic slave trade, or even those of us that just like John Canute, like festivals, you know, this is a place that we should all look to and see this direct connection between the Bahamas and a hinterland that then spread throughout the entire diaspora. And when I speak to anybody from the English or the Dutch-speaking African diaspora, and the first question I say, hey, you familiar with the name John Canute? And 99% of them say yes. They can't put their hand to it. But they say, yeah, I know what John Canute, that's some type of festival, right? Or it's some type of play, or it's some form of music, or right? But it's something that's in our psyche. And this is why it's so huge, you know, and we just extremely excited to get it rolling. We're just looking for the necessary support. You know, there's a lot of talking, there's a lot of proverbial pats on the back. But, you know, all of us here, we are doers, you know, and so we're trying to do some things. And so, of course, anybody who interested in getting involved, they could reach out at us at Sankofa Flamingo on Facebook. I think they could also reach out to you as well, Ms. Malcolm, and they could always shoot forward. And of course, we have a trailer load of support over there in Ghana. And moving on to other shout out to Young Whale, you know, we get my brother Kobe Mighty from OJ Radio, who I think is watching. You know, yeah, Stephen Kenya Arthur, many, as you could see, many Ghanaians are tuning in now, you know, and they're ready for us to come home. And a part of what we're doing too is an exchange program. You know, we're trying to take this absolutely seriously. These people are our families. We need to look at them as our big brothers and big sisters, as they are, and they will look at us in exactly the same way. And this is a great opportunity for the Bahamas, as Marcus Garvey prophesied in the 1910s, that the Bahamas will be the gateway back to Africa. You know, so, and of course, I'm not a spiritual guy trying to prophesy or predict the future or anything, you know, but when you take this pilgrimage, I'm sure you will have your own profound spiritual experiences, and even Dr. Bateman will tell you all about that.
Someone is asking for the name of the book, or is it too soon?
No, Sankofa Flamingo will be the name. Once you have that, and it'll be different editions and different volumes. Sankofa Flamingo will always be the main heading, and then it'll just have different subheadings. You know, so the first one is going to be called the Black Rinse, whitewash Black Rinse. yeah, those. Right.
All right. We're running out of time, so I'm going to go around and I'm going to give each of you, let's say, 45 seconds to give us your final thoughts. Ladies first. Queen Warrior.
Well, I would like to say that I now know what all of the stress and preparation I've been going through over these years is for this time in my life. I am literally living out my destiny right now. And I always say, I am Junkanoo. We are Junkanoo. I am a hunter.
All right. Thank you so much, Soror. Dr. Pateman, let's go to you next.
I would say that the entire experience was very spiritual for me. And Christopher kind of alluded to this. I am not a spiritual person. I am a very scientific, very matter-of-fact, facts type person. And there's just so many aspects of the journey that sort of built into my spirit. Even when we met with the king, Beta Bonta the 15th, he pointed at me when we were leaving. He stopped us and said, "I like your spirit." That just meant so much to me that it was really profound. And I think this will be a great experience, the pilgrimage, for every Bahamian and everyone who is a fan of Junkanoo.
All right, Robin, let's go to you.
So I just want to press upon what is Sankofa Flamingo, because there is a meaning behind it, right? So Sankofa, the word Sankofa means to go back and fetch it. You said it, right? So this is what it is. We need to go back and fetch what once was, get the best from the past, bring it to the now. And so the flamingo aspect of Sankofa Flamingo, if you understand how flamingos are here, it represents our national bird, but they move as a collective. When something happens, they move as one. And so we now have to understand that we must be able to move together as one. There's no more divide, because we cannot be conquered in this anymore. We have the narratives, we have the stories that pulls us together, and we need to unite as we go forward, taking the best from the past and moving forward.
All right, and the final word goes to Nana.
Right, so I'll just hold up this symbol right here. Fenton Funfunu, Denshin Funfunu. That is Twi, the Akan language, the Hanta dialect, for Siamese crocodile. We have to view ourselves as the Siamese crocodile. Why the Siamese crocodile? What does the symbol mean? It means unity in diversity, or unity no matter what. Two Siamese crocodiles join at the stomach. If they do not cooperate, they will surely perish. And we are in the exact same situation, both figuratively and literally. And history, particularly this history, is something that unifies us as Bahamians, unifies us with people in the United States, Jamaica, and unifies the entire diaspora. And this is something that all Bahamians can participate in. And this is something where we provide opportunities for all Bahamians with the numerous initiatives that we have, that we would need 2 weeks on your show to get through.
And we only got a minute left, so I got to wrap you up right there.
So yeah, I finish now. I have a tendency of being a little long-winded, so I can stop right there, let y'all go.
All right. Well, listen, I want to thank all of you for being a part of the show today. Really do appreciate this conversation. Opened my eyes about a lot about the connection between us and the Ahantas in Ghana, Africa. And definitely let me know when you're doing that pilgrimage next trip, because I won't be a part of that. All right.
October.
Thank you guys so much for being a part of the show today. Really appreciate it, Sora. Good to see you as always.
All right. Thank you.
All right. That's going to do it. My time is gone. I'm Michelle Malcolm. Thank you so much for being here today. Tomorrow, you know the drill. It's every Friday. We have an open line show where you get an opportunity to talk about what is on your mind. We're going to be looking at the week that was. That's tomorrow's show, TGIF Open Line Show. That's going to do it. I'm Michelle Malcolm. Thank you so much for being a part of the show today, and I'll see you guys tomorrow. Be safe out there.
Global 90